Okay, Alec Baldwin protesting about protests. The actor tweeting this: "Life in New York, hard enough as it is. The goal is to not make it more so. How does clogging rush hour traffic from 59th to 42nd do any good?" Now, Alec Baldwin was complaining about a recent New York demonstration, in fact, last week, when people were demanding a higher minimum wage. Rachel Swarns from The Times responded to Baldwin by saying, among other things, this: "Your Twitter message sounded just like a teensy bit insensitive to the protesters who, after all, just want to feed their families, pay rent, and try to stay afloat." Now, Baldwin may not be the best messenger here, but the question is, does his message make sense? And here's the point, Dominic. We've had demonstrations in this country to address social wrongs, to protest wars that were unpopular, that weren't intended to make things convenient or not. But if you're if you're not trying to preach to the choir with the people there, but trying to convince the broader public, the optics of how you do it. I think this is how the Occupy movement lost after a while. I think the message people wanted to hear in the beginning, but after a while they thought they were, what do they call them, dirty hippies in Zuccotti Park. Whether that was fair or not, that was the optics of it. What's that line between having an effective protest and not turning people off?
Alec Baldwin needs to go back to his elitist world, because that's what this sounds like. Oh, you can protest, but don't dare interrupt my day. How dare you? I mean, come on, Richard. There's a reason why we don't like to be inconvenienced. None of us do. But
Especially
there's a reason,
yeah.
Right, but there's a reason why it's called no justice, no peace, meaning that you're going to disrupt daily life until there's justice.
Okay, but take that one, Dominic. In the aftermath of Garner and Brown, people got it when they were walking down, let's say, the West Side Highway, but when all of a sudden they started going across the bridge and breaking, I think there was a hint where people were like, wait a minute, I sympathize with you, I was with you, but now all of a sudden you're getting into anarchy here. There were lines here where you don't want to cross. Obviously what happened in Ferguson went way beyond any kind of line of acceptability. Are there lines, though, between peaceful protests, staying in the lane a little bit, or does the more chaos you create, the more attention you get to your cause?
The more chaos, the more attention to your cause. Again, there's
This
a
is
reason.
from the Sharpton
There's a
playbook.
reason why it's called no justice, no peace.
Not
You
every
agree?
not every attention is good attention. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I do agree with him wholeheartedly. I mean, look, you cannot have a protest that is going to resonate, particularly in the type of media environment we have where people are inundated with information on Twitter, Facebook, everything else, unless you really make a stink and people start to pay attention. So you are going to have to disrupt traffic. And you know what? This is a good cause to disrupt it on. And I was surprised when I heard Alec Baldwin come out with this. You know, look at, these are people are asking for $15 an hour. That's it. And you have Alec Baldwin coming out and saying he couldn't get from, you know, this street to that street, and when he was, you know, flitting around doing whatever. I mean, come on, it's ugly. So you have to make some noise if you're going to be heard and potentially get these changes made.
You give us a good visual, you give us a good crowd, we're going to be there and we're going to put it on TV and we're going to take some sound bites and people's messages will get across. You don't have to necessarily interfere with people. I think
How much more coverage though do you get if you do? Your coverage, you're right, you'll cover it, but you'll cover it more, Andrew. You agree with me? You'll cover it more if it's disruptive, right?
No,
Yes, you
would. We'll cover
Million
it.
Man March,
If
people
there's a
set up
big
the
crowd
cameras
there,
and-
we'll
The
cover
re-
it.
the rest
If you're going to start, because here's
Okay,
the thing,
the rest
getting
of the
attention
media
is
will.
good. Getting attention is good for your cause, but not all attention is good attention. And if it's the attention that we're blocking the Brooklyn Bridge, or we're blocking the West Side Highway, or we're lighting buildings on fire, or whatever the case may be, that's not helping your cause. That's just getting,
traffic is
getting
not.
you more- I wanna get this
getting you more
Disrupting
airtime.
traffic is not lighting buildings on
I
fire.
think it's a liability issue to me. I think that when you do that, you set yourself up for many unintended consequences. Someone trying to get to a hospital, someone is so mad, trying to get to a job interview, doesn't get it because they're stuck in that. People just don't always understand that. So I do think that those protests have got to be somewhat known so you can avoid them if you have to. There's just so much liability that can take place without them.
I think it depends on the issue, but it's an interesting one for me. Again, if
Andrew
you're trying
would
to
cover it more if it was disruptive.
I'm not even covering this.
Okay. Now, we want you to get involved in our conversation. Head over to Facebook and Twitter and sound off on our question. Disruptive protests, effective or counterproductive? We got two different opinions here at the table. And switching gears really quickly here, As you may know, Andrew and I, we've got a gentleman's bet here
Who
going
put
with
this in
the
the
Capitals
show?
and the Islanders. Overtime, Islanders 15 seconds, make it 2-1, home game advantage. And we did capture Andrew, though. His reaction in New York City when he was watching this game. This is right as the goal came in. That was the television.
I'm offended by that.
Andrew's strong and angry. All right, Mike, thank you. All right, we can come back. We got to have some Deli headlines for you. Stay with us.